Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. It is a great pleasure to welcome you to this event organized by Free the Slaves and Alliance 8.7. And we thank you for taking the time to be with us today. The session of today is going to be a very exciting one, featuring presentations on how civil society organizations can engage with Alliance 8.7 to achieve the eradication of forced labor. As such, this webinar will be an opportunity to learn more about Alliance 8.7 from our panelists and to engage in a meaningful discussion following their interventions. Today, we also have a great lineup of speakers. We are very grateful to have Mr. Benjamin Smith to join us. Benjamin is a member of the Alliance 8.7 Secretariat and a senior officer on child labor at the International Labour Organization, where he supports governments, workers and employers organizations, businesses, civil society, and communities to eliminate child labor. Previously, he was a senior officer for social corporate responsibility with ILO. In that position, he led a major expansion of ILO's engagement with the private sector to tackle child labor in supply chains. He also founded the Child Labor Platform, which is a business-led initiative for exchange and cooperation to address child labor risk, coordinated by ILO and the UN Global Compact. Benjamin started his work with ILO back in 2000 in Costa Rica, and from 2002 to 2006, he led a groundbreaking project to eliminate child labor in El Salvador. We are also very glad to have with us today Mr. Bukeni Waruzi, Executive Director of Free the Slaves. Bukeni also represents anti-slavery groups as a civil society member of the Global Coordinating Group of Alliance 8.7. Bukeni has been working in the anti-trafficking sector for more than 20 years, documenting human rights abuses, designing and implementing advocacy campaigns, and training hundreds of human rights advocates and activists in Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and the Americas. Throughout his career, Bukeni has spoken to high-level audiences, including the United Nations Security Council, the International Criminal Court, and the Children's Caucuses of the US Congress. Finally, we are most glad to have the participation of Mr. Smith Maxime, who is the Caribbean Regional Director at Free the Slaves. In this position, Smith is playing a crucial role in the implementation of Free the Slaves' strategic plan for 2021-2031 in the Caribbean region. Prior to this position, Smith was Haiti Country Director for Free the Slaves for 10 years. During his career, Smith has worked alongside Haitian non-governmental and community-based organizations to develop and implement programs to strengthen institutional capacity. Before coming to Free the Slaves in 2006, Smith joined the office of the United Nations Population Fund in Haiti, where he spent 5 years as the Gender and Rights Program Manager. The session of today will be moderated by myself. My name is Dr. Marta Furlan. I am the Research Program Officer at Free the Slaves, where I am responsible for designing, implementing, and disseminating Free the Slaves research projects. A few words on how the session of today will proceed. After this welcome address, I will give the floor to Smith for his introductory remarks. I will then invite Benjamin to give his keynote speech. After that, Bukeni will give a presentation on the opportunity for eliminating forced labor through Alliance 8.7. After Bukeni's presentation, we will have a 30-minute Q&A session. In this regard, I invite you to write your questions in the chat. A further note on this, today's event will entirely and exclusively be in English. We do apologize if this is an inconvenience for anyone, but unfortunately there was no alternative to this. However, we can accept questions in Spanish and French. So should any of you prefer to raise questions in one of these two languages, please feel most welcome to do so. After the Q&A session, it's not going to be over. I will invite Benjamin to give his closing remarks, and Smith will then wrap up today's event with an overview of the next steps. The event of today is a recording, and we hope that this is fine with all the participants. A final point, should you experience any technical issue during the event, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us through the chat. I will now end here and invite Smith to take the floor for his introductory remarks.
Thank you so much, Marta. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are around the world. Thank you for taking time to attend this webinar. We are really grateful for that. As my colleague Marta said, this webinar is an opportunity to learn more about Alliance 8.7 and get your questions answered. Target 8.7 of SDG 8 gives us the opportunity to tackle at on time forced labor, modern slavery, human trafficking, and the worst forms of child labor. With Target 8.7 comes the approach of the whole government. That means government agencies should coordinate together the designing and implementation of policies to tackle the 4 pillars of Target 8.7 with the participation of civil society organizations. We are sure your contribution will enrich the conversation. Once again, welcome. Marta, I yield the mic back to you.
Thank you so much, Smith, for setting the first words. And now I will give it to Benjamin for his keynote speech. Please, Benjamin.
Thank you, Marta, and hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you on this important webinar, and thanks very much to Free the Slaves for the cooperation and the permanent sort of collaboration that we as the Alliance Secretariat have with Free the Slaves as one of the representatives of civil society on the global coordinating group of the Alliance. So what I'd like to do in the next few minutes is describe the Alliance 8.7 to you, the main objectives, a bit of how it works, and then talk about Pathfinder countries in particular, because in those Alliance Pathfinder countries, I think is where the rubber hits the road, to speak, to coin a phrase, and where the Alliance can have impact in the lives of people at risk of forced labor, child labor, modern slavery, and human trafficking, and the victims of those abuses. And then finally, I'd like to address particularly how collaboration with civil society works within the Alliance and some opportunities for deepening that. So as many of you will be aware, Alliance 8.7 is a unique initiative in the United Nations landscape. It brings together stakeholders in efforts to accelerate action toward the achievement of SDG Target 8.7, which Smith outlined. That's taking immediate and effective measures to end child labor in all its forms by 2025 and to eradicate forced labor, modern slavery, and human trafficking by 2030. So we know that while the challenges are huge, much is already being done by a wide range of actors. And I'm probably safe in assuming that the organizations participating in the webinar today are among that group of actively engaged members of the global movement. Alliance 8.7 aims to strengthen engagement and coordination at global, national, and regional levels to drive progress. The key pillars of the Alliance's strategy and main objectives are centered around acceleration, innovation, leveraging resources, conducting research, and sharing knowledge. So the guiding principle of the Alliance is that by coordinating efforts, we can work more efficiently and go further faster. So we're aiming at a global movement against child labor, forced labor, modern slavery, and human trafficking that is truly more than the sum of its parts. So, colleagues, the time for wasteful duplication and fragmentation of efforts is finished. We owe it to the communities and people that we're working for in that regard. You just need to look at what we're up against. ILO estimates that the business of forced labor generates $150 billion annually. So we have no time, and we must make absolutely sure that we make the most of the scarce resources that are available in the fight against these abuses. So the Alliance provides a platform for partners to come together to share information, promising practices, good practices, lessons learned around those practices, and to demonstrate progress. So today there are more than 500 partners involved, including governments, workers and employers organizations, international organizations, civil society organizations, survivor networks, academia, and business networks. So civil society organizations represent the largest number of partners, in fact, a key part of the Alliance, and really extends its reach to a great extent. They have significant networks of their own, of course, and important expertise gained from working directly in communities with people vulnerable to forced labor and child labor. But the true value of any global partnership is measured by the difference it makes in people's lives. So for that reason, Alliance 8.7 supports the development and implementation of policies and programs that are most effective in tackling the problem. So collectively, after many decades of experience, we know what works against child labor, modern slavery, forced labor, and trafficking. It's a question of connecting the dots and applying that knowledge, translating it into the right mix of policies, and ensuring that there is appropriate funding, human financial resources behind them. So at the national level, 36 countries from every region in the world have committed as Alliance 8.7 Pathfinder countries to show the way, and they're developing national roadmaps through processes involving whole of government, all relevant ministries, but also multi-stakeholder approaches, so that it really can be rooted in society at large, and then reporting on the implementation of those roadmaps. Their numbers are growing steadily as more and more countries step up to the challenge. So the roadmaps are an innovative policy mechanism, not just because of the inclusive way that they're developed, but also because they bring together, and usually for the first time, all four of the elements in Target 8.7 in a coherent plan. In that regard, it's important to recognize that generally countries have much more experience in developing national action plans on child labor than plans dealing with the other elements of Target 8.7. So by creating coherent, kind of unified plan, the Pathfinder countries can really leverage the strengths of different elements of governments and society working on those separate issues, separate but quite connected, as we know. So awareness and political will to tackle forced labor is increasing, as evidenced by the growing numbers of ratification of ILO forced labor conventions and the 2014 forced labor protocol. And of course, on the child labor front, the Convention on Worst Forms of Child Labor was the first in ILO's history to reach universal ratification. So every child around the world has that legal protection now. But by creating joined up plans linking forced labor to child labor, Alliance helps ensure that the efforts to achieve 8.7 really have the best chance of having success. So I want to say a few words about the Pathfinder Country Accountability Framework, and I know that Bukeni will go into more detail on this, but perhaps just to mention that what an important milestone this was for the Alliance 8.7. It came in the context of a strategic workshop, the second one in the life of the Alliance that happened at the end of last year. That was really a chance to reset the Alliance, take a look at what's working, what's not working, and to refine its approaches to try to maximize its effectiveness. And the accountability framework was a key part of that, and was subsequent to that workshop adopted by the global coordinating group of the Alliance. So the accountability framework, true to its name, strengthens the integrity and accountability of the Alliance 8.7 Pathfinder country mechanism. It provides clear guidance on what it means to be a Pathfinder country and what are the expectations and responsibilities that come with that. By establishing the standards and expectations, including for coordination with partners, the framework is critical in achieving tangible progress on the ground. It's important to note that to secure and maintain status, a country status as a Pathfinder country, they must take concrete collective action, developing roadmaps, implementing and reporting on them on a regular basis. So it's a very action-oriented framework, and this level of transparency is just fundamental. And so the accountability framework, placing an emphasis on multi-stakeholder engagement, has particular implications for civil society, for your community, from along every stage, from the manifestation of interest to the planning, implementation, and reporting of the cycle. And so the civil societies have a key role to play in all of those. The framework is also important to ensure, as I mentioned, the integrity of the process, and to make sure that countries live up to their commitments. And if they don't, there is a new status that's been created of inactive Pathfinder countries. So provides time for Pathfinder countries to step up and do those things that are necessary to meet the commitment, developing roadmap, et cetera, so that they can then become considered active Pathfinder countries once again. And particular thanks to Free the Slaves for their really dynamic role in driving that process. It was ended at with the adoption of the framework, but started many months ago, if not years ago. And so really appreciate the special role of Free the Slaves in that regard. So just to conclude my remarks, the accountability framework offers civil society organizations, survivor networks, and all partners opportunities to become more involved in probably the most important aspect of Alliance 8.7, which is the development and implementation of the roadmaps. There are other ways that partners can become involved, including through Alliance 8 action groups, whether they're on supply chains or migration and other topics that they are interested in. So with some recent changes to the governance of the Alliance, partners have a new ability and are empowered to propose and support new action groups in areas of common interest. And I would encourage all of the partners of the Alliance to consider doing that. So the strength of the Alliance for sure rests in the diversity of its partners, and we're committed to finding more ways to more fully involve all partners, including survivors organizations. So their importance of their participation can't be underestimated. Their perspective, expertise, and experience of survivors should be heard and considered when developing policies and programs on Target 8.7. It's an area where the Alliance has set up a working group to pursue and is looking to strengthen engagement, and look forward to your feedback on that idea in particular during this webinar. So just as a final note, would encourage all the participants of the webinar to continue to liaise with your CSO representatives on the Alliance. So that's Free the Slaves and Global March Against Child Labor, to get involved and support the work of this global initiative. So with that, I will end it there, and just to thank you very much again for the invitation, and looking forward to the exchange.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. That was great. You did an excellent job in explaining how Alliance 8.7 works and what it means to be a Pathfinder country, and the role that Pathfinder countries play in advancing the mission of ending modern slavery by committing to going farther and faster. So we really appreciate, and we are so glad that you are with us today. Now I will invite Bukeni to take the word for his presentation. Bukeni, please note.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Are you able to hear me? Okay, yes. Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Marta, for the wonderful moderation, and thank you so much, Smith, for the introductory words, and especially thank you so much, Benjamin, of Alliance 8.7 Secretariat, for the wonderful explanation of what the Alliance is and how civil society can play a big role in helping to support countries and some of the key information. I'm sorry that that I will be able to convey the information that I thought will be very important for us to know. My presentation actually was very much helped by what Benjamin has presented, which really saves quite a lot of time. So I'm not going to repeat what Benjamin has said, because it was very well said. And as someone from the Secretariat, so he's very well placed to talk very well about everything that the Alliance does. But I will focus more on what really civil society working on forced labor can do to help achieve target 8.7 as they work at national level, but also at global level. Again, thank you so much all for joining us. I know you had many other engagements, but we very much appreciate to have you joining us this morning. And also thank you so much, Brian, for trying to deal with the technical issues. That is also very much appreciated. I will now go ahead and share my screen, if you allow. Just give me a second, share screen. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, as we've been already said, this session is, aims at trying to provide key information for civil society or organizations tackling forced labor, and how we can work to address the issue in our communities, and also working at global level with the Alliance 8.7. As you know, if you look at the Alliance 8.7, what we're going to discuss today is really the issue of looking at the Alliance 8.7 and talking about the role that Free the Slaves plays at the Alliance 8.7, the Alliance 8.7 structure, and also the Pathfinder country model. Again, I'm not going to repeat what Benjamin has very well explained, but I will talk more about these three. As you know, Free the Slaves at the Alliance 8.7 represent a cluster of forced labor. What that means It means at the global coordinating group, Free the Slaves brings the voice of civil society organizations working on forced labor. It doesn't mean it is limited to that, but contributions can go beyond that. But really, that is the expectation in terms of the role that Free the Slave can play. So, Free the Slave being one of the 3 civil society organizations that are at the at the Alliance 8.7 global coordinating group, it means trying to give key recommendations, but also working to support the Alliance 8.7, on that issue of forced labor, which is one of the target 8.7. However, I think it's been very important to show to see Free the Slaves' role really contribute a lot, whether being part of the working group on monitoring, but also in other areas as well, such as survivor engagement, and also working closely with the Secretariat on matters that are very important to the Alliance 8.7 and the Pathfinder model. So we've been representing this cluster since 2000, I would say 18, and really Free the Slaves' contribution has been really tremendous. But how do we take those voices there? As you know, Free the Slaves runs the global the Forum for Modern Slavery, the Freedom from Modern Slavery Forum, and that way we are able to really galvanize a large number of civil society or organizations and take those voices, whatever recommendations comes out there, to try to channel that also to the Alliance 8.7 through the different bodies of the Alliance, whether be through the working group, through the GCG, or through some action groups that Free the Slaves participate in, and other very important meetings where the issues around Alliance 8.7 are at the table. So as you know, the Freedom from Slavery Forum is the biggest forum in the modern slavery area, at least for now. It represents the very voices that comes from the ground, representing survivors, civil society organizations working on the front lines, representing academics, and all those that attend, including some interested government that want to come to hear, to listen, and to see what are the best approaches of eradicating modern slavery and achieving 8.7 target as they hear from civil society and other experts. So that is really a great way that we have been trying to channel those voices around this very issue through the Alliance 8.7. I should note that other organizations that also sit on the GCG are our colleagues at Global March Against Child Labor that represent child labor, and the Global Alliance Against Trafficking in Women that represent the cluster of human trafficking. However, that will talk more probably before this. And then the next is really the structure. There's not much to say here because all the information about the Alliance 8.7 structure is on the Alliance 8.7 website. So I will encourage whenever you can to visit the Alliance 8.7 website to get more insight, more information, in terms of what are the Pathfinder countries, and also learning about some of the roadmaps that are being put forward, at the Alliance, by the Pathfinder countries, but also learning in terms of what progress is being made as you learn as you read the reports. And really, I want to thank the Secretariat for being so transparent and really provide the key information in a way that is comprehensive and also inclusive. So all the information that you may need are really at the website of the Alliance 8.7, where you can get great resources and tools. But also in the Alliance, you have, so many, various working groups and and also action groups. Of course, the invitation is always very open to civil society or for civil society organizations to join some of these working groups and also our action groups, whether it is action group on migration, action group on supply chain, and different action groups that are available. The invitation is always open. And this is quite some of these opportunities that are available to civil society organizations and other partners to learn, to get involved and to share some of the good practices that these organizations, that your organization is doing. So while I'm talking about the structure, I want also to take the opportunity to invite civil society or organizations, let's say in this case, whether you work on forced labor, or child labor, or modern slavery, or human trafficking in general, will be good to see and see how you can join some of these action groups, because we need the participation of many organizations, and especially survivors as well, survivor organizations and network, to participate and come share the best practices that we think can be useful for the Alliance, as the opportunity is really very open, and really the progress that has been made, not alone what Benjamin has been, has explained us, the progress that has been made at the Alliance 8.7 and all the innovations that really are available, really are really an opportunity for us, or civil society organizations to join. And then the Pathfinder country model. So the Pathfinder country model, as Benjamin explained, is really the backbone for the Alliance to achieve 8.7. These countries do engage in trying to make sure they tackle these issues of 8.7, but also try to come up with strategic way of achieving them. They put inside, they bring in the resources, the political will, and also they also bring in different mechanisms to help achieve the priorities that are set by the roadmaps that they have. Today, if you look at the number of Pathfinder countries, as Benjamin said, 36 countries really are working hard to make sure they can achieve 8.7. And if you look at some of the roadmaps, you will find nearly 60 to 70% of them have an emphasis on forced labor. It means, forced labor is one of the key issues Pathfinder countries are trying to tackle. And what kind of progress are we seeing? Both, progress in terms of policies. Some countries really have enacted laws that really tackle forced labor in global supply chain or in many other areas as well. Some of the countries' roadmap will find they try to make sure the justice mechanisms are working effectively to tackle forced labor at local level, but also at national level. And also other areas you'll find, really include putting an end to some of the practices that lead to forced labor, or really focusing also on the accountability for forced labor, whether they work with businesses or maybe some like-minded people and other key partners at country level. And without saying too much about the accountability framework, because I know we have done this already in terms of explaining what the accountability framework is, really it sets up a mechanism to really ensure the whole of government principle is applied, to make sure that countries are able to tackle the whole, all the 4 issues, and also to make sure that the key partners can also participate. By key partners, I mean this can be the unions, or the civil society organizations, the survivors, the businesses, and the UN agencies, and all the wide range of partners that are working at national level to make sure that, target 8.7 is achieved. So the Pathfinder model really, it's also an opportunity for civil society or organizations to work closely with the government, as you know, on the same goals and objectives. And I have to say here, that doesn't happen often. It is really one of the innovation and one of the really the key progress that has been made at the Alliance 8.7 level. Why? Because it offers an opportunity for a partnership, government and key partners, to achieve target 8.7, which is the goal that we all work to achieve. So this model, it enables that kind of partnership. It comes to open doors where those doors did not exist in the past. While, as we know it, not one single entity can be able to achieve 8.7 alone. It will need greater cooperation with key partners, with everybody involved and included. So that's why the Pathfinder model and the Alliance 8.7 framework really, they come to open up that door very wide in a way that we can all contribute in eradicating forced labor in our communities and also globally through a structure that kind of brings some kind of unification around around a common battle, around a common goal. So if you go to Free the Slaves website, you can download the accountability framework. I'm sure the Alliance 8.7 is also working to make sure all the resources are available on the website. But nonetheless, you can find many more tools and resources on the website of the Alliance 8.7. And the accountability framework is available in Spanish, French, and English, and many more languages will be put forward. Right now, Free the Slaves is going to work with our Kenyan partner to make sure the accountability framework is also translated in Swahili. So it will be a move that will continue to make sure the document is available not only in international languages, but also in local language, in national languages, wherever it's needed. So if you have an interest in learning more in the language that you see that you are comfortable in, reach out to us. You can go through our to our website, and then you can find all that information. Now, as I've explained in terms of Alliance 8.7 and forced labor, now I think the next point I want to show is how then can we work together on this, and also to make sure that survivor voices are heard and included. Civil society, as I say, Free the Slaves is representing the cluster of forced labor, and the hope is that we will find a mechanism where we can work comprehensively and cohesively to make sure we effectively channel those voices, not only through the forum through the Freedom from Slavery Forum, but also other venues that I think we're going to talk here. But also the issue of ensuring survivor leadership is also manifested at national level and at global level within the Alliance 8.7 framework. I am so happy that really the progress that's been made at the Alliance, its ability to listen, to be open to new ideas, recommendations. It's been something that really you can see as as part of the working method of the Alliance 8.7. And recently, with the leadership of the United States Department of Labor, few recommendations were put forward about how to ensure survivor voices are present and also survivor are engaged at the Alliance 8.7. So these recommendations were very helpful and were unanimously adopted by the global coordinating group in its May 2023 session. So I want to thank the Department of Labor for taking the leadership of ensuring that really survivor voice and leadership is manifested at Pathfinder level, but also at Alliance, at the global structure of the Alliance 8.7. And if I may go back again to the accountability framework, another opportunity is not only the engagement, when the roadmap are created, implemented, and also reported on, but also the idea of forming a task force at national level or committee that we will have to bring together these key partners working with the government at all steps of the way to ensure we are all achieving 8.7 and we work together. So it is very much encouraged, and I'm very happy that to see at many levels, many of these governments, many of these Pathfinder countries are really working hard to ensure survivors are also engaged and are part of the mechanism, and they are consulted on a regular basis so that they can provide the guidance that is needed to make sure these roadmaps are effective and can bring about change. So, all the civil society working on forced labor, I think the invitation is, let's come together to see how we can help to, that trend of continuing improving and ensuring the target 8.7, especially on forced labor, is achieved. So what I want to do here is to make sure that we keep strengthening the voices of civil society and survival. So what we're trying to propose here is that we would like to maybe form an NGO consultation group on forced labor, not to compete or to be an ad hoc group to the global supply chain action group. We'll find, would be pretty much complementary, but I think Free the Slaves would like to propose a consultation group on forced labor. Why this? This is very important so that we can make sure we channel effectively recommendations and voices of civil society working on forced labor to the Alliance 8.7. And this will work in tandem or to complement also the action group on global on supply chains. Why this is important? Because we want to make sure not only having the Freedom from Slavery Forum as a platform to help us achieve this or to help us be the conduit of these voices, but also we want to widen up for organizations that might not be participating in the forums or might not be aware of it. So how we have this small group of experts that we can put together to make sure some recommendations, some ideas, or, on how to tackle effectively forced labor can be channeled through the Alliance 8.7. So this is something that we would like to create and ensure that really we can achieve this in a way that can be very supportive to the Alliance 8.7 work, and also especially the Pathfinder countries, as many of them are gonna be having, will also include the priorities on tackling forced labor. So we need to really organize very well so that we can provide the information, the support that is needed to these Pathfinder country or that are working to achieve 8.7. So we will talk, we will work more on try to define the mandates, the expectation, and the role and the composition of that kind of a consultation group. And again, the role will be to work on this to support the work of the Alliance, whether through the action groups or through the Pathfinder country process, etc., and the roadmaps and all of that. So this is something that an invitation that I want to launch. And if you are interested, please put on the chat, because I'm glad that we are recording this and we can see on the chat who is interested in joining this consultation group. And once we got your names, if you can put your name and organization in there and the contact information as well, that will be great. I'm sure also Marta can put in let's say, Smith email address and also Brian email address in the chat. So you can use those two emails, Smith email address and Smith Maxime from Free the Slaves, and Brian email addresses will be available if you are interested in joining. Just send an email to the two of them, or put it in the chat here, and then we'll follow up to make sure we can have this group formed that will help to support the initiatives that are happening. The one thing that I should note, the Pathfinder country movement, allow me to call it so, is growing. It started small, but now we are talking about 36. I believe by the end of the year, we may be talking about 42, and the next year, we may be talking more and more. So as the Alliance 8.7 organizes, become more and more effective. So I think we will also, or it will be good for us also to organize well so that we can provide the much needed support at national level, but also at global level. So that is why this consultation group will have. So we cannot define what is the mandate here, but I think once we have a core group, then we can talk about what will be the key mandate, the expectation, and the role and the composition, and then we'll take it from there. So this is one of the things that I wanted today to share, so that I think at least we can work more effectively. So what will be the logistics for this consultation group? Of course, we'll talk about the working method, the information sharing, and the working calendars. So this is something that we will discuss when we meet with the consultation group, and that will be defined effectively what will be the effective working method, and how do we share information among ourselves, and also through the Alliance 8.7, and also the working calendar, how do we meet every day. By working methods, it means it answers the question of what will be the best approach for this consultation group for working effectively, and meeting the expectations. So that is pretty much what we will discuss here. At this point, we cannot provide more details, but I think it's really good to give you the headlines of what this will mean. It will also mean in terms of what will be the roles and the responsibilities of each member joining this consultation group. And then two, information sharing. While we enjoy the newsletter that is sent by the Alliance 8.7 Secretariat to inform all of us about key information, but also there are many things that you are doing probably the Alliance 8.7 is not aware of. So this could be a way to see what are other additional information that the Alliance 8.7 might be interested in. So I mean, it is kind of sharing the information in terms of what we do, some of the great papers that are being produced here and there that we see in many ways. So, I mean, this group will help channel that through the consultation group, of course, and the work of Free the Slaves. And then the working calendars, of course, it's always good to know some of the dates that are key to the Alliance 8.7, and then see how we can participate in in the calendar, whether through our participation as participant, whether through providing information and also some key guidance, but also for the work for the consultation group to make sure really we have a working calendar that also reflect the objectives and what we need to see as outcomes. So that is very much what I wanted to discuss here. And in terms of the next step, I think, as I said, we like to form this group and then make sure that we channel effectively the voices of NGOs and survivors, NGOs working on forced labor and survivors of forced labor, to make sure that these voices are being channeled in a way that is effective and strategically enough as we all work to achieve target 8.7. So I want to end here and thank you all. And of course, I want to yield back to Dr. Marta for any Q&A, and I'm glad that we are all here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you, and I yield back to you, Marta.
Thank you so much, Bukeni. This is a super interesting and engaging presentation, and I'm sure that all the participants appreciated it as much as I did. And perhaps taking advantage of my position as a moderator, I would like to start off by asking to you, Benjamin and Smith. We are seeing greater interest and greater awareness towards modern slavery and human trafficking as issues that are affecting virtually every country in the world. And at the same time, we are witnessing the emergence of new initiatives to address this issue. I'm thinking, for instance, of the recent initiative put forward by former UK Prime Minister Theresa May on a global commission to bring together international efforts and international cooperation in addressing modern slavery and human trafficking. I would love to hear from you, how can we make sure that these international efforts and become, they don't overlap with each other, but rather support each other? Perhaps Benjamin would like to go first. Thank you.
Thank you, Marta, and very good question. Absolutely, that points to the need for coordination amongst various global initiatives. I mentioned earlier the danger of duplication, which is the last thing we can afford, given the size of the problem, the incredible resources that, in the case of forced labor in particular, criminals have, the criminal networks that are there. And so I think a couple of elements that should be baseline of the initiatives are respect for international standards. So these are already established in various international instruments, notably the ILO forced labor conventions and protocols. And so that shouldn't be, part of what's up for debate. It's more about what can be done to support implementation. And so, baseline of respect for international standards, and then a mechanism for coordination. And you mentioned the Global Commissioner, which we know Alliance 8.7 is in touch with that effort and that initiative, and really with a view to making sure that there can be reinforcement according to the strengths of each. So there's not any monopoly. There's room for lots of initiatives at the global scale, as long as they're well coordinated and can complement each other effectively. So that does require effort, and so that investment in coordination, engagement, Alliance 8.7 is obviously linked with the the sort of universe of SDG initiatives, and 8.7 is linked to a lot of other ones on violence against children, in particular, other education. So I think it's incumbent upon those initiatives, those multi-stakeholder together, to coordinate amongst themselves. And so we do our best as from the Secretariat to make sure we're linked up with other SDG initiatives and nationally based efforts and initiatives on forced labor and child labor, it's the same story. It requires effort, but it's absolutely worth doing because there's the potential to really build on and leverage the distinct kind of strengths of the different initiatives.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add a little bit. Thank you, Smith, for that. I think, you know, what is important is what, as you said, is to avoid duplication. And in the, you know, looking at the size of the issue and the scarcity of the resources, we want to make sure that, you know, this is done effectively. Free the Slave has been also in touch with the Commission, you know, through the various channels. But I think one thing that we always put forward is to make sure that we are able to galvanize the political will to achieving 8.7, and this kind of structure can help galvanize that political will if this is one of, it seems like this is one of their objectives by ensuring target 8.7 is achieved within the time frame if possible. But also the resources, as we know it, target 8.7 is quite one of the least funded issues of many. So how can we not only galvanize the needed political will, but also the resources that are needed to tackle this 8.7 issues effectively. So it is something that will be really important also to coordinate, as you say, to coordinate effort so that we don't seem, these different actors don't seem to be working in silo, but also emphasizing on partnership, how some of these structures can partner with those existing to learn and to be complementary. So it is something that really we want to make sure that really the issues at heart of 8.7 are being effectively tackled. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both Benjamin and Bukeni. I really appreciate your answer, and I think you touched on some very important words such as partnerships, reinforcing each other's contribution, and emphasizing everyone's own strengths. I will now pick up on some of the questions that our participants wrote in the chat. The first one, which is addressed to Benjamin, but perhaps Smith and Bukeni will want to share their own thoughts as well. First of all, they thank you, Benjamin, for your excellent keynote speech. And then the question is, what mechanisms at the national level do you see to accommodate civil society?
Yes, thank you for that question. So I think there is a lot of potential for deepening engagement with civil society at the national level in the context of Alliance 8.7. A lot of untapped potential at this point, I would say, to be perfectly frank. I mentioned the 500 partners that the Alliance has. I think for many of them, it's a bit of a passive engagement. Maybe they benefit from the information that's in newsletters and webinars and so on, but where it counts is at the national level. And so a part of what the accountability framework seeks to ensure is that the processes at the national level are multi-stakeholder and involve civil society organizations. So for that, and Smith and Bukeni can speak probably better than I can to this point, but each stakeholder representative on kind of the board of the Alliance 8.7, part of their role is to facilitate their kind of constituents or the organizations that they represent, facilitate their participation in the development of roadmaps, in those workshops that are lead to that policy of the roadmap. So for example, one of the things that we do as ILO, this is a little bit independent of our role as a secretariat, but if there's a roadmap development workshop happening in country X, and then we want to ensure that our sister UN agencies are there, are participating, we can send a message and say, hey, look, on 15th of September, this is happening. Can you please get in touch with your country director and ensure that they're there, because it's very important that you do that. So I think a similar dynamic could very well play out with civil society and the representatives on the global coordinating group, but absolutely participation in those workshops, development of the roadmap, and then implementation. And here I think is a big opportunity for, as Bukeni noted, CSOs linking with government and supporting government policies. It's a way that organizations can maximize their impact, frankly, because you link up to the state capacity and support states in meeting their obligations to protect human rights and to lead the effort on tackling forced labor and child labor. So yeah, that's what I would say in response to that very, very critical question, but I think probably Bukeni and Smith would have more to add.
Thank you, Benjamin. What I can add is that the important is that not to duplicate what is already exists. In most of the countries at national level, there are working groups, for example, on human trafficking, okay, where CSOs are involved. Now, what is the next step is how do we can, go to the approach of the whole 8.7, not only working on human trafficking, expanded the working group on modern slavery, forced labor, worst of child labor. This means in the existing mechanism, we can add, the elements of the 8.7. This will avoid, duplicating what already exists, the energy already put forward in the specific country.
Thank you, Smith.
Thank you, Smith. Yeah, if I may add to what Benjamin and Smith Maxime said, yeah, thanks so much for those points. And I will just add a quick point. I think the role of civil society is key in many ways, not only through the roadmaps, but also some countries, even those that are not Pathfinder country already, some of them have national action plans. Some of them have, have to about, by the different ILO conventions. So there is still, kind of a great work that can be done in many ways, whether within the Alliance 8.7 framework, but since we know not all the countries are Pathfinder, but within those frameworks that are outside of the Pathfinder in the framework, where you have several action plans. But the key here is what should be the role of civil society organizations as they work with government and other key partners. How do they coordinate among themselves, but also among key partners that exist at country level? So that is where I think as civil society, we have a big role to play. And what we can do is really to show the willingness to partner and to cooperate with many of these key partners. As we said, within the accountability framework, the accountability framework, the process is such. Opens door for inclusivity in a way that is unprecedented. So you can be involved at the roadmap development. You can involve at the implementation phase. You can involve, but also to help provide information that can be reported on. So, I mean, there are many ways, or at these many stages, we as civil society organizations can be involved and should be involved. Now, the problem is, how do you get involved? How are you, how do you know the roadmap development is going on? So those are questions that if you are interested in finding where your country is, the Alliance website provide all the information that you may need to know if your country is a Pathfinder country or not. Sorry, it is a Pathfinder country. But also you can reach out to the Secretariat as well. Of course, we are not the Alliance, but we can also provide information that can be very minimal, but really the right information will come from the Alliance Secretariat. So I think it's pretty much asked civil society to be more proactive.
Thank you so much, Bukeni. Going on with the questions, your presentation about the consultation group has generated a lot of interest among the participants, and they are asking what are the requirements to join this consultation group? What are your expectations from organizations that want to be part of this initiative?
No, I mean, yeah, thanks so much, Marta. Yes, the invitation is open to civil society organizations be working that are working on forced labor. So the civil society in a large way, which can include academics, it can include funders, it can include NGO, non-governmental organizations, it can include survivor networks, of course, include survivor networks, etc. So it is really a wide range of those within the framework of civil society organizations.
Okay, thank you so much, Bukeni. I'm sure this is helpful, and we're looking forward to receiving many emails.
I see Benjamin want to raise something maybe.
Oh, yes, thank you. No, just if I may, to compliment Bukeni on that point, it probably is very clear, but as this would be a part of the Alliance, I think an important step would be to join the Alliance in the first instance. So that process is quite simple. It's on the webpage and very, very easy to do. So if the interested CSOs are very welcome and encouraged to sign up to the Alliance and then participate in the various working groups and action groups that are established. Thanks.
Marta, there was a question related to that. There was an organization submitting an application. I didn't hear about that.
Yes, I will take this privately because it's for an application that was submitted. So I will manage this internally at Free the Slaves to understand what happened. And before we conclude, the final question, going back to what you were mentioning, Benjamin, at the beginning, explaining the Pathfinder country process, you were mentioning the roadmaps. Could you perhaps delve a bit more in depth into those? Are these differentiated country by country? Would it be helpful in the future to have a unified roadmap capable of addressing, however, also the different stages at which country are finding themselves?
Yes, thank you for that question. So to provide a little bit more detail on those roadmaps, ideally they will cover forced labor, child labor, human trafficking, and modern slavery issues. Not all of them do. As I mentioned, some countries have much more experience, and frankly, political willingness can be an issue to grapple with forced labor and so on. So there are some that don't cross all four of the elements of 8.7, but we certainly encourage countries to do that. And usually that's for the first time that there's such a kind of a joined up approach on those. It's also important, as Bukeni pointed out, that many countries already have national action plans, NAPs on child labor, national action plans on forced labor, and so those may very well be current and valid and ongoing. So it's not about creating a parallel policy by any means. I think it's very important to build on, if necessary, the existing action plans and again, to connect if they are separate on child labor, forced labor, to connect the two. So one of the things that the Secretariat has, that the ILO has, is guidance on development of national action plans on child labor and NAPS on forced labor. So we're looking to create some very kind of easy to use, looking at combining those two. So for those countries that want to do a unified action plan across the 8.7 target, that they would have a handy kind of resource to go to. So the roadmaps themselves, yeah, I would encourage this, as has been pointed out, all on the website. A lot of the highlights are there, and we're working on, as roadmaps are approved, they're put on the Alliance 8.7 website. That kind of transparency is I think healthy, right? That countries can demonstrate this is what we've set out to do, and then can be kind of open for their citizens and stakeholders to have a look. How are they doing, and to hold them to account on implementation of those roadmaps. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Bukeni and Smith, is there anything that you would like to add?
Yes, there is a question about the Alliance 8.7 website, because I have loudly invited a colleague to go to the website of the Alliance to get more information. So I think sometimes some of the information might not be timely updated on the Alliance 8.7 website. So I think probably the question is for Mr. Benjamin to come and maybe provide some light here in terms of how the update of the Alliance 8.7 website will be done to make sure it is consistent with what probably some of the information that is being provided with different channels is.
Yeah, thank you for that question that I now see in the chat. So it's indeed the website was relaunched in June on the occasion of around the time of the World Day Against Child Labor. So it with the intent that it become more dynamic and feature more regular updates. Currently, the key way to disseminate information about upcoming events in particular is through the newsletter, and for that we very much depend on our network of partners to let us know what's on the horizon, and that comes out monthly. And so the sooner that we receive word about upcoming events, the more advanced time that we're able to provide on the newsletter. But the updates about Pathfinder countries in particular, which the question points to, there I think is something that we are working toward. We will send out a survey of all the partners, the 500 that I mentioned, to get more information about what partners can do to support particularly Pathfinder countries. And one of the ambitions is to facilitate connection amongst those partners with Pathfinder country processes and engagement. And I think that includes, providing information with enough advance time to be able to make that practical and feasible. But it is a work in progress. One of the elements that the Global Coordinating Group is looking at is capacity of the Secretariat. So we run the website and the newsletters and facilitate the Pathfinder country process, but that's a pretty lean operation, to be completely frank. And so we are looking to our development partners in particular to be able to increase funding for the Secretariat and increase its capacity. And one of the key elements on that sort of proposition is to strengthen the communications element of the alliance, because we recognize there is room for improvement for sure.
Thank you so much, Benjamin, for documenting the steps that you're working on to improve the website. And by the way, I think this question points out how much people are appreciating joining your website, coming to it to find the information.
Yeah, Marta, if you don't mind, I just wanted also to say, as I said, there are 3 civil society organizations sitting at the global coordinating group, but there is one of the groups that represent human trafficking has recently left because of the organization's issues. So that seat is open for replacement. So we will be reaching out to a wide range of organizations, especially working on human trafficking, to start a process of selecting an organization that will represent the cluster of human trafficking at the Alliance 8.7. I give this information here just in case many organizations I know are working on many issues, forced labor, human trafficking, and child labor, but that one is. And so Free the Slaves and Global March Against Child Labor are working together to come up with a mechanism that will help in terms of how we do the selection process in a way that is democratic and transparent, to make sure we find a replacement, an organization that will take up the seat for a civil society representing the cluster of human trafficking. So stay tuned. We will come back to you, you and of course the other group, to share that information and start the process, as Free the Slaves and Global March are still working to finalize the details on the process. That's the very small information I wanted to add.
Thank you, Bukeni. Thank you so much for sharing this. It's a webinar full of opportunities. And unfortunately, because we're running out of time and we'll have to close the Q&A session, and also because we are not done yet, in fact, I will now invite Benjamin for his conclusive remarks.
Yes, thank you so much, Marta, for your excellent moderation. And again, a big thanks to Free the Slaves for organizing this event. There's no way I can do justice to everything that was said over the course of the webinar. So maybe just to highlight a few points that jumped out for me as particularly important. And I think the invitation to get involved was clear. If you're not a member of the Alliance, you should consider joining. As I mentioned, it's a fairly easy process, and we very much hope that to energize that group of stakeholders in the civil society in the coming months. I mentioned a survey that we will send out to find out what countries CSOs and other partners are working in, and how do they see themselves, what potential do they see in their organizations to contribute to achieving target 8.7. So that information will provide a baseline for the next step, which is to facilitate greater communication coordination with those partners, and with the ambition of being able to, that the Alliance act as a channel, a conduit for support to Pathfinder countries in particular, and to the implementation of the roadmaps. I think coordination was a key word that came out, and this would be an important step in that regard. Another key word I would say is partnership. And so the opportunity is to join hands with the Alliance 8.7 stakeholder groups, and particularly for government. I think it's been repeated, the opportunity for civil society organizations to have a greater impact by aligning efforts with government policy and programs. And certainly that element of partnership and facilitating that kind of relationship is key, is one of the fundamental objectives of the Alliance. You know, the CSO consultation group that Bukeni outlined, I think, is a fantastic initiative. It would be interesting to look at whether this fits into, you know, whether there should be the creation of an action group or working group, or what would be the modality within the structure of the Alliance 8.7 where this could be situated. And I think where it is particularly useful potentially is in again channeling support for national level efforts and really connecting the dots amongst those. And I think it's something that the GCG itself would be very interested to hear about, and would have the you know, give it its blessing in due course, so that this can become kind of a formal step taken forward by the Alliance. Last point that I just wanted to flag was that, and Bukeni mentioned it, it's not just Pathfinder countries, right? There are 187 ILO member states, 193 targeting UN, and civil society has, you know, a footprint across all of them. Certainly for us, we have the responsibility to support all of our member states on the elimination of child labor and forced labor. So just wanted to echo that point and support that point, that wherever civil society may be operating, if linking up with partners, with government, with workers and employers and organizations, with academia, it's a key opportunity. And so let's not just restrict ourselves to Pathfinder countries. So Marta, with that, I think I would just leave it with a big, again, thank you for the invitation and a very stimulating exchange.
Thank you so much, Benjamin, for joining us. You've been part of such an interesting webinar. And before we conclude, I will invite Smith for detailing the next steps ahead.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Benjamin. In terms of next steps, there are two things to remind. The first one is the creation of the NGO consultation group. If you forget, put your emails and your interests in the chat. We can reach out to you, and also you can send the emails to me and my colleague Brian. You have our emails in the chat. The second is the interest to receive information for the Alliance 8.7. If you feel the interest to receive information, please put your emails in the chat, and then the Alliance can send regularly information to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Smith. So again, thank you very much to Benjamin, Smith, and Bukeni for this super interesting webinar, and thank you to all of you who took the time to be with us today, for your interest and for this engaging conversation. We very much appreciate, and we are looking forward to seeing you at the next webinar.